In this podcast, we're focusing on Iraq's recent elections, what they mean, what they reveal, and where the country may be heading next. To guide us through it, we're joined by William Morris, an experienced Western observer of Iraq's political landscape. William has been underground since the fall of Saddam as an observer of the Iraqi elections, and he's worked closely with communities and officials across the country. As we look back on more than 2 decades of conflict and state building, years in which many American, British, and Allied servicemen and civilians gave their lives in the hope of a better and more secure future for Iraq, the region, and the world, we ask a difficult but crucial question: has their sacrifice been worth it? I have the pleasure of having William Morris from Next Century Foundation with me today. And I'll be talking to Dr. William Morris, I should say, about the recent Iraqi election. And the reason I'm talking to William is because, William, you've been to Iraq several times, haven't you?
Yeah, more times than I can remember. Yes, many times.
And it's a country that I know you've always told me you love very much. And maybe in
Absolutely.
your own words, you can explain why I'm coming to you about the Iraqi elections and how you are qualified to speak about the recent elections.
Well, we've been observers at most of Iraq's national and regional, local elections. That's the Next Century Foundation, the organization I head up. And we've sent out teams to look at and monitor, observe the elections, which is very necessary, of course, in a situation where you have an emerging democracy. And people are grateful for that. People locally are grateful. They raise issues that concern them. And we travel the entire country from north to south, including the more disputed and difficult areas like Kirkuk. We obviously observe in Baghdad, but down as far as Najaf, even Basra. And the elections matter because why does it matter? It matters because we have, I guess, a number of emerging democracies, and the Iraq is the one that had certainly the greatest potential after the fall of Saddam Hussein, the greatest level of enthusiasm amongst ordinary people for the elections, in my view. And you saw it on the streets, the great passion people had for democracy when it came. And then, there are issues now, of course, and we'll talk about that.
The reason I contacted you for this podcast is because I watched a video of you on your YouTube channel, which I will leave a link to in the descriptions,
Sure.
where you were talking about how despondent you were and how frustrated you were with the elections before they happened. And
Yes.
just before you speak about why you were despondent, I just want to say something else about you so that the viewers get a better picture. I've known you for over 20 years. And on many issues, I know we disagree. Sometimes we're diametrically opposite to each other, but I don't think you mind that, do you? I mean, you're
No.
actually someone who promotes dialogue, so
Well, yes.
you welcome different opinions. But despite having different opinions on some of the issues and being even diametrically opposed, you're someone that I've known for over 20 years and I greatly respect. And I think you have a wealth of experience that I always find interesting to tap to.
Well, bless you,
So
Brooklyn.
having given that background as well, let's go back to the video that you made before the Iraqi elections. As someone who's been an observer for many of the elections since the fall of Saddam Hussein, you've been up and down the country many times, you know the country well, you were very frustrated. Why was that?
Well, a range of reasons. The first being that the Independent Higher Election Committee, which oversees the elections, become, if you like, a tool, I guess, of the major political parties, particularly the Shiite political parties who are in ascendancy, and they disqualified 400 candidates at the outset. 400. for little or no rhyme or reason, reminiscent, of course, of your home country, Potkin, Iran. I mean, the disqualification of candidates on a large scale, obviously, really is a major blow in an emerging democracy. And then on top of that, they increased, and this is something which all the big political parties in Iraq conspired on, because it was voted in by all of them. They increased the threshold for the vote, and increasing the threshold for the vote means that parties that get a smaller vote are disqualified from the outset. This used to be done. I mean, it's been done in other countries in the West. It was done in Germany, where they had, after the war, they had a threshold for the vote, basically to eliminate the extremists, so you wouldn't get Nazi party people and so on, who would only maybe have one seat. But by they in Iraq now they have increased the threshold so much that the reality is that any independent candidate really doesn't stand a chance. Any ordinary marginal minor political party is ruled out, and only the major blocs get seats. Only the big. And is that all of it? I mean, they also, not only did they disqualify candidates before the vote, but they also refused all appeals, all of the appeals on the elections with regard to matters of probity. So that was an issue. Really, the whole. I mean, Iraq has enough trouble without manipulation at the center. You have candidates who will manipulate by trying to buy votes.
How much does it cost to buy a vote in Iraq?
Well, I mean, $18 will do it for sure.
$18.
Yeah. It's the price of a Kalashnikov, actually. But anyway, in the street, there's so many of them.
You referred to Iran, where candidates are disqualified, so it's a bit of a sham election. And I was just going to say, I mean, you mentioned that yourself as well, that, you have this disqualification in many countries, even in European countries. You had it in Germany. And you have different extremes, don't you? So in Iran, it's basically anyone who is deemed not to value the Islamic values and be sort of loyal to the revolution will be struck off, or whatever the political expedience is. Sometimes even the pillars of the revolution are disqualified. So I've never been able to call the elections. I've never, thank God, never taken part in any of those elections. That's one extreme of disqualification of candidates. But you can't have every Tom, Dick, and Harry be a candidate. I mean, otherwise the system will be overwhelmed. I mean, over here in UK, we have a sort of, I think, £1,000 deposit for anyone who wants to stand as a candidate. So that means that sort of like filters out the serious candidates from the sort of anyone that just wants to sort of like put their names down. I mean, you still get the monster raving lunatic party, but you have different extremes of disqualification, and some of it is understandable. But what you're saying in Iraq is that you've got the established political parties, and from now on, that's it. There is no chance of any independent candidates or parties being able to participate, or stand as candidates in the election. Yeah,
and it disheartens the young, who are very frustrated in any case. And then you've had, I mean, a couple of years ago, you had young people on the streets in major demonstrations, which were put down ruthlessly and by the militias. And but now young people should at least be able to stand, and they want to stand for new parties. They want to encourage. Well, they feel encouraged by new ideas. They're more secular to start with, and they really are not being given a chance. They are ruled out, marginalized completely by the system as it stands.
So they've tried peaceful protest against these Shia militia Islamists, and they've been brutally cut down. They've sort of like tried the ballot box in the past, but now they've given hope. They've given up hope with the ballot box as well because they think it doesn't make
Yes,
any difference.
yes,
So right now, this is when things get dangerous, isn't it? When you get sections of population thinking, well, there's only one way for them um, to take part in the running of the country, and that's by force. Because
exactly.
you've tried the ballot box, you've tried peaceful protests.
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, the more extreme militia groups were uh, the protests, by the way, were frustration at levels of corruption and at unemployment, the two hand in hand. And the young went out. I mean, unemployment is significantly high in Iraq, despite the large revenues. And a lot of young people went into the streets to demonstrate. And many of them were shot by snipers, shot in the back, shot by militia, and the groups responsible. I I mean, there've never been any proper inquiries, but it's almost certainly there are groups that were fearful that the established order would be shaken, and they represented the groups responsible, the militia responsible for putting down the demonstrations.
As an
Um,
observer in the elections, were you ever intimidated yourself in the elections?
oh yes, 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 yes. For
You want
goodness'
to tell
sake.
us about that?
Oh well, my goodness. I mean, obviously, there are when Daesh ISIS was on the rampage. I remember one time we were on the road from Baghdad to Kirkuk, election before last, and myself and Ambassador Hamley, if you know him,
Yeah, I do. Very nice man.
he is. We were both in the car. We'd left the team back in Baghdad. The rest of the team, they had a rough enough time because there were a lot of suicide bombers around. And at that particular point in time, because of the emergence of ISIS, Daesh, but we were on the road and we thought we were pretty safe. We were driving up to Kirkuk to cover, obviously, Kirkuk is part of the disputed territories. Um, and we were about two-thirds of the way there, driving through some open country. And I remember it was like a giant puffing a cigarette or something, a huge puff of smoke, and then the clunk clunk of the IED and the metal hitting the car we were in. We had an escort, some soldiers in front. The guy in front jammed on the brakes. What you should do is accelerate out of there, because it was an ambush. He jammed on the brakes. Oh dear man! And the guy that trapped us and the car behind. And immediately there were a few soldiers with us. They jumped out, started spraying everything with machine gun fire. The car behind us was nobody was killed, thank God, but it was yeah, the engine was the radiator was taken out. When we finally got going, we limped on for a couple of miles, and we had to abandon the car. Everybody had to pile into the one in front. Then we were two cars. We got to Kirkuk safe and sound, and then I remember we were dodging suicide bombers in Kirkuk. Yes, you. And it's a funny thing, in the immediate aftermath of that, they talk about these things. You don't like to talk about it. You're sort of shaken, and you just people ask you what happened, you just don't say. And then, of course, now no big deal. But yeah, no, we had our adventures in Iraq.
But did you have no protection as an observer?
Yes, we had. No, we'd asked for. We yes, we had a yeah, a pickup truck in front with a few soldiers and a machine gun, and it was we didn't stop the Daesh from ambushing, and it was a miracle.
I mentioned earlier that I respect you, and the wealth of experience that you have is something that I always try to tap into. And one thing I forgot to say about you is that actually I find you quite fearless as well. So you've just demonstrated. And I mean, this sort of thing has happened, and then it hasn't sort of put you off about going back at all, is it? You've been back after
Yes, yes,
incidents
of
like that.
course,
So
of course. It's a lovely, lovely country. It's a beautiful, multifaceted country with so many.
how do you overcome that fear, William?
I I'm afraid of many things. I get moments of despair, but I'm not. I guess these days I'm not really afraid of dying, um, and I don't know why. I have a faith, I suppose. I not everybody does, and that helps. But it's also
You're a Quaker, am I right? Or
no, no. I do. We do. My wife and I, Veronica and I, do occasionally attend. We just attended a Quaker meeting house the other day. But I'm any open door, I'll go. Um, really, I'm not. I'm not. I've even attended mosques at times when we were living in Oman. I don't. I just want. I just believe that. Do you know? I don't know whether God doesn't speak to me, unfortunately, but I like talking to God. And
I'm talking to you now.
yeah. No, I like to lean on the Almighty. I mean, otherwise I'd be in big trouble. Lean on the
So,
Almighty and on my wife Veronica, and
so your faith isn't specific to any specific church or denomination, but you just believe
no,
in this um, greater being,
that's right.
and
Yeah,
you think having that faith makes you stronger.
I think so. I would be in deep trouble without it. I need people to lean on. I lean on Mark Hamley. I lean on friends. I lean on people I love. And I do lean heavily, and I hope they lean on me. You need that sense of having companions to take this journey with. But
You're
but
not the first one to tell me this. I mean, I've met other people, especially people who've had to face great danger
mm,
a lot of times in their life, and they find such comfort when they sort of like find this um, greater being that they can lean on.
mm,
I can think of a few names, but myself, I've never had any spiritual belief, but I've always said it's easier for someone to go through the hard times if they believe in something.
mm,
So I can understand where you're coming from there. But just digressing from the Iraqi election. So before the elections, you were talking about that, it's the end of democracy in Iraq,
yeah.
and you were predicting a low participation in the elections. Um, let's move the clock forward now. So we've now had the Iraqi elections. What's been the outcome? What was the level of participation? Who are the winners and losers?
Well, the level of participation, despite IHEC, the Higher Election Committee, claiming that it was significant, it was very, very low, particularly in the Shiite and Kurdish areas. The Sunni areas, it was slightly better because the Sunnis had something to vote about, I suppose, because the major blocks had not emerged, and you had a kind of a contest in the Sunni areas that was more open, and so there was better voting. But in the south, in the Shiite areas, Najaf and right up to Baghdad, Basra, the voting participation was low because people felt there was no future, and that was difficult. That was difficult for them, and the yeah, it's natural, really. I mean, they were aware. People are not dumb, they were aware of what was being done, and they felt that these elections were not going to change things, which is clearly the case. And you had the major power blocks come back bigger and stronger. You had one Shiite group, Muqtada al-Sadr, and his group, not flavor of the month for everybody. He's also a militia leader. He's a cleric that runs a group, and his area is so they call it Sadr City. They used to call it Al-Thawra. It's to the east. It's the eastern part of Baghdad, and he rules with an iron fist. And his followers tend to do as he says. But he decided that none of his people would stand for election because he felt that there was no democracy, no real democracy left. Has to be said, he's one of the militia leaders that is not under Iran's hands. And
Nevertheless, very extremist, though, isn't he?
oh, he is. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. He wants the Americans out and all the rest. He is very extreme, but but uh, but he's a bit of how would you describe him? A bit of a brat. You
Yeah.
can't tell him. You can't tell him what to do.
He's uncontrollable, actually. That's how the Iranian regime has described him.
Yes, yeah, completely uncontrollable, which is maybe a good thing. And he's not the worst. When I say he's a bit of a bad guy, he's not compared to the real bad guys. You have people like Kaisal Khazali there, who's one
Who is an
amazing.
Iranian proxy.
He is an Iranian proxy. He is brutal, ruthless. I mean, actually, of the major blocs, he is the most under Iran's hand, and a murderer.
How did he do in the elections?
He did reasonably well because I mean, the so Sudani got 46 seats. His alliance. He's the outgoing prime minister. Nouri al-Maliki, Dawa party, got 29. Halbusi, the Sunni independent, interesting man, not a bad guy, got 27 in his bloc. But Kaisal Khazali, Saib al-Haq, al-Sadiqun, they got 27 seats as well. So he really got a good chunk of seats in the parliament. This ruthless man,
And
followed by
just to add more background on him, I mean, he was prolific in kidnapping and killing British
yes,
servicemen and American servicemen and even non-military personnel that were in Iraq. I've met and I've spoken to Peter Moore, who was there as a computer programmer working for
mm,
the Ministry of Finance after the fall of Saddam.
yes,
And he was kidnapped by the Asaib al-Haq, Qaisal Khazali's militia group. He believes he was taken inside Iran for several good reasons, but I haven't got time to go over them now. But yeah, and four of his bodyguards, which were, I think, American and British, were killed in the 3.5 years that he was a hostage under Qaisal
mm.
Khazali. So he's a very, very nice man. And I'm surprised. Is he prescribed? Is he a prescribed group? It's not, is it? It can't be
No,
otherwise.
no, no, no. I mean,
Uh,
he personally may be prescribed in the sense as well. He should be, I suppose, as an international terrorist. But the no, inside Iraq, he is not prescribed. He's not part of a prescribed group. He was not one of the hundreds of candidates, and him and his people were. Yeah, I don't think they dare disqualify Kaisal Khazali. Um,
William, William, there was in your video, apart from your grieving about the what was happening to Iraqi democracy and all that, there was another issue that you were particularly annoyed with, and I'll share your annoyance. And that was that the last Iraqi parliament approved child marriage,
yes, yes.
and you were particularly angry about that. I mean, um, what does
It's
that say about um, the West tried to install this democracy in Iraq after the fall of Saddam Hussein, and what was it about 22 years since? We're
mm,
now in a position where this so-called democracy is no longer a democracy, and its so-called elected representatives pass on child marriage legislation. I mean, where did we go wrong?
I tell you, it is an awful piece of legislation. allows children of 9 years old to be married off. And of course, the proponents of this kind of thing might say, "Oh well, they won't live together till puberty." What is that? I mean, you're condemning a young girl to a marriage to somebody at the age of 9, and then you're going to give them to the boy at the age of 14, 15. I mean, it is what kind of world? Um, we have enough trouble with, forgive me, but with arranged marriages in the Kurdish area. We get a lot of suicides amongst young women, and those are not 9-year-olds. They're married off at a more respectable age. But this has been introduced uh, by the major Shiite groups. For what? For what? What is the point? I mean, it is so fundamentally wrong. It's such an awful piece of behavior. And then even I mean, it wasn't, the Kurdish groups abstained. The Kurds, who you think of as sophisticated and understanding, the KDP, the PUK, they didn't vote against it. They just abstained, because I think they wanted to score points and say, "Well, look, we abstained, so now you should help us on issues with regard to oil or whatever." I don't know, but they were trading favors. But come on, you don't trade favors in that sort of way. It's a matter of principle, and it's a disgrace that the major Shiite parties decided to introduce this child marriage law, which is done to pander to extremists, really, and
I mean,
to
there's
fanatics.
so many more urgent issues, isn't there? There's like
Yeah.
running water. There is like unemployment amongst the youth, and all
Mm.
these major issues. And to waste time on passing a legislation like this, I mean, it's just backward, isn't it, William?
Very medieval, very inappropriate, very sad. I mean, it's a sad thing. It's almost shaming to say that women's rights are worse now than they were under Saddam Hussein. But it
And
is a fact. It's a fact, really. I mean, I'm not saying the countries. Well, I don't know. You could argue it's the country isn't, in some respects, is not worse off than it was under Saddam Hussein, because Saddam Hussein was a ruthless killer. But gosh, honestly, it's very difficult for ordinary young people in Iraq now to have a sense of freedom and hope. Um, it's desperate.
this time you didn't go back as an observer, did you?
No, because we didn't get the. Normally, we get we get Iraq funding to go back, but we didn't, and that was we had the team on standby to go right up to the last moment. I think um, our regular funders didn't come through. We It does cost to do this kind of work. It's expensive, to not just to fly out there, let alone cover your accommodation
Of
and all
course,
the rest
yeah.
while you're there.
But if the funds became available, would you go back again?
Oh Lord, yes, heavens above. Iraq is people really welcome election observers. It really matters to people in Iraq, and people need their stories told. People need to hear that somebody cares. That people feel a sense of isolation. People feel um, a sense of despair if they can't. They know they can't get their voice heard in the normal way, and if somebody is there listening and reporting and talking to them, it does matter. Of course, it matters. It matters a great deal. Gives people hope. Gives Iraqis hope. It matters.
Now, I think what's particularly sad is that so many British, American, Allied forces servicemen, died, they were killed to overthrow Saddam and to bring about a better Iraq and Afghanistan as well.
Mm,
And neither of those happened. Um,
yeah.
I mean, I remember at the time you could say to them, like, well, the sacrifice that your sons made, your daughters made, was for a good cause. This is going to change the face of the Middle East. It's going to bring about a better world. It was a sacrifice worth dying for. But you can't say that now to them, can you? To the families of the people, the servicemen who fell in those um, in those wars.
I perhaps you can. It is. It's not outcomes that matter. Well, of course they matter, but for you, Potkin, for what you do, the work you put in, it's your action that matters. That's you are making a statement for freedom, freedom from fear, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom from want, the great four freedoms that Roosevelt used to advocate. You are standing for that. You are doing what you can, and your actions have meaning. The fact that the outcome you may want has not happened yet and is not going to happen tomorrow is not the point. The point is that you are standing for something. You are for a principle. You're planting your flag with meaning, and of course we care about outcomes, but that's not why you do it. You don't do it if I'm not going to be successful, I'm not going to do it. You do it because your heart and soul feels it's the right thing to do. And that's important. That's always important. And
So
without people doing that, we'd be in a mess. The whole world would be in a mess.
So you think this something that's not over yet? It's a longer term view. It's a case of the battle is lost, but the war is not over.
Yes, exactly. Very much so. And there is, I mean, what is it? You walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You have to keep a kind of militant hope. We live in a dark world in many respects, and we need to hold on to hope. It's not, sometimes it's wrong to be realistic. Sorry, but wrong to be a realist. Because why? Because otherwise you just give up the battle and there'll be nobody to fight. You have to live and stand for hope, even in the darkest hour. It's very important to hope. It's militant hope is never wrong, in my view.
Well, on that profound note, I thank you once again for your great insight into not just Iraq but into many things. I thought that was a fantastic closing remarks, and thanks for your time. And hope I'll be able to talk to you again on other issues as well. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Park. It's so lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bless.
William.
Thank you.